Good morning, everybody. It's BDF44 coming at you with another video. Today, I'd like to talk about the combination. I'd like to talk about the comparison between, and this is something I heard Max Kellerman say briefly on a segment of First Take this morning. So I just turned off the video immediately and ran with the concept idea. So, as always, damn near by signature, I am not prepared, but I am using my memory and what I've seen from Anthony Davis from afar based on YouTube videos and very few games that I actually watch from Pelicans. So I'm limited, but I do know enough about KG, Kevin Garnett, and Anthony Davis to at least have a conversation about this. So that's what I'd like to do. I'm not going to bring statistics into the conversation because I'm not great with numbers, but I will bring in what I remember seeing KG do versus what I've seen from AD. So here we go. From the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to give the edge to prime KD. Now, mind you, we're talking about players in their prime. So when you hear me talk about KG, I'm talking about probably the last couple of years in Minnesota, first year in Boston, that KG. I want to catch him in his prime. Around the time when he won the championship, I'd say he was exiting his prime, and I would never compare him to what AD is right now or what I've seen from AD, because I don't think AD's even gotten to that point yet. AD is in year 8 or 9, if I'm not mistaken. And so if that's the case, we're talking about the end of KG's Minnesota Timberwolves tenure. So, defensive side of the ball, from what I've seen from KG, is KG was one of the greatest defensive power forward players that I've ever seen in my life. And what I mean by that is he was smart in setting picks, knowing how to read defenses, knowing how to read offensive plays, I should say, knowing exactly where he should be at all times, knowing where all of the players on his team should be at all times. And one of the things that has been spoken about him at length is his intellect and his ability to speak. And you know how important talking on defense is. We hear athletes talk about it all the time. KG was one of the best ever at that. He would make sure that you knew where you were supposed to be and that you knew what he was thinking about that situation on the basketball floor. You could hear him screaming out the different plays and things like that. He knew plays like the back of his hand. He's one of the smartest players to ever play the big man position. And so when you talk about Kevin Garnett, the first thing that comes to mind for me is that his ability to speak and his ability to read and his ability to communicate with others and have it make sure that they were on the same page that he was on. So from that perspective, defensively, I don't think there's too many ever better than him. He blocked shots at a very consistent clip. He rebounded the ball offensively on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively, at an all-star clip consistently every year. And what he also was able to do was steal the ball, do things like that, put himself in positions to get in passing lanes and really act up and disrupt offensive plays. There was so much that he could affect defensively. And so when I'm looking at Anthony Davis, I haven't seen enough of him, honestly, to know exactly where he compares defensively to KG. But I will say that if he doesn't talk like KG, if he's not the type of person that moves, as much as KG does, then it's very easily a KG conversation for the defensive side of the ball. I think most people would say he was a better defender overall. Now, is he as capable as Anthony Davis? I do believe that Anthony Davis might be slightly more capable in terms of blocking shots. He might be slightly more capable in terms of just affecting things as he's longer in that regard. So I would say that physically he may have some comparison or may have some handle on KG and on that, but just in terms of overall defensive side of the ball, it's definitely going to be KG for me at this point. Now we're looking at the offensive side of the ball. KG had a fantastic mid-range jumper. He used it, his turnaround fade, he used often. It was go-to moves. He had a lot of moves in the paint and all of that. He could shoot three a little bit. It was really, his era was really before the big man was asked to stretch the floor, but he still did it. There were times where he hit threes. It wasn't asked of him. So sort of like when I look at Michael Jordan, his three-point ability, it just wasn't asked of him. But if he were in this era, he would stretch the floor, and I'm pretty sure he would do it very well. So I'm not really worried about that. I think he can be competent from behind the three-point line in his era, and I think he would have grown to be much better if he had to adjust with the times. So that's something I have no issue with, but I do have to give the edge to AD on that. In fact, I think I give the edge to AD just about in every aspect of offense, just simply because AD's a more offensive-minded player. You know, KG was never the guy that's going to give you 35 every night, 20, 28 every night. That's not his game. He was more so affecting things defensively, and then he would, you know, get in where he fit in offensively at times, do exactly what's necessary of him. He would shoot a high percentage. It wasn't like he wasn't shooting very much, but his mindset was defense and activity, more so, you know, doing what the necessary dirty work to assure that his team had him available to it. A lot of his teams didn't score a lot of points a lot of the time, with Minnesota particularly. They didn't have a lot of offensive weapons, and he wasn't necessarily an offensive-minded player. So they would score in the high 90s or low 90s most of the time when I would be watching. Fantastic from the free throw line. Both of them were. I had the pleasure of seeing KG in a game with the Lakers. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Shaq had him, didn't miss from the line that game. It was something ridiculous, like 15 for 15, one of the great, if not the greatest free throw shooting game he ever had. It was something of that nature. And, you know, KG also shot very well from the line. So I was able to see, you know, both of these super duper legends have really good games from the line as I was there. So that was really, really something that allowed me to understand what type of player KG was in that aspect. He was very good at it. He was competent from the line. He made sure that when it counted, especially down the stretch, he was available to you. He made it work. One thing I can't say that I really saw a whole lot from KG is ball handling. I don't think at the time, again, we're looking at the NBA being different. It wasn't incumbent upon big men to do things like guards back then. So I wasn't really looking for him to be a ball handler. And I think at this point in time, we can clearly see that AD is a much better ball handler than KG was in his prime. So I wouldn't compare the two in terms of that. That's a no-brainer. KG wasn't known for pushing the ball, although he could do it. It wasn't like AD, who was a little more fluent, who had guard background, that kind of thing. So definitely giving the playmaking, ball handling category to Anthony Davis. And I think when you're looking at impact, they were both very equal in that regard. They both made 1 million All-Star teams. I think AD has 1 million All-Star teams to make. Up until that point, neither one of them had a championship. So really, when you look at it from just a face value standpoint, 8 years in, I think you're looking at one player, Anthony Davis, who's significantly better on the offensive end, and the other player, KG, who is better but not significantly than AD on the defensive end. So overall, I think at this point, just looking at what I've assessed, I would say that AD gets the slight edge based on that particular thing. The fact that AD is both dominant on the defensive and offensive end at a superstar clip makes it so that I would put him over a prime KG, who was just very, very good offensively if called upon. You know, and again, a lot of this is catered toward the understanding that the game has changed a great deal, so that KG and AD did not really have the same responsibilities, even though they had similar roles. And also, we're looking at a situation where both of them are on very mediocre franchises throughout their prime. You know, they parallel, and that's why I think this comparison is relevant, because they both parallel in that regard. They stayed with one franchise for a nice long time, got paid, but didn't win, and weren't able to really establish themselves as winners on that franchise. Now that KG went on to the Celtics, obviously he went and won a championship, went to 2 NBA finals, established his legacy as a winner, and I think that Anthony Davis is going to do the exact same thing with the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, whether we win it this year or not, I'm kind of on the fence about that. I think we have as good a chance as any, but I do know that we have some very serious competition, in my opinion, in the Clippers, the Sixers, the Bucks, and probably the Rockets, even though I'm not as high on them. They still are capable with the type of superstar talent that they have to give every and anybody problems. So with that understanding, I'm not certain that the Lakers are going to win a championship this year. I'm not shooing us in, but I will say that with the addition of Anthony Davis, there shouldn't be anybody that we're afraid of. And so that's the type of player that he is. He can solidify a stability for you as a super duper legendary Hall of Fame talent. So with that being said, I want to say that KG was my favorite player who was not a Laker when I was a kid, prior to him becoming a Boston Celtic. Once he became a Celtic, obviously as a Laker fan, I had to put that aside. But while he was with the Timberwolves, he was my favorite player. And it wasn't necessarily because I was in love with the way that he played, but it was just the energy that he played with, the passion that he played with, the the fire that he had in his belly for the game and the fire that he had for the defensive end, particularly in rebounding, that I just found to be Dennis Rodman-esque. You know, that's who KG actually reminded me of as he was coming into his own. He played like Dennis in a way. He rebounded the ball and he threw himself all the way out there for the defensive side of the ball. And you know, I wouldn't say he rebounded quite as well as Dennis, but he did other things that would make it so that you just could not take your eyes off that player. He would really just control the entire game with his energy and with his effort. And I think he has that over AD. I don't think AD exhausts as much energy and as much fire in his game to what I've seen thus far as KG. And that's not a slight to him. That's speaking highly of KG and what he brought to the table. There's not too many in the history of the sport that brought it like KG in that regard. So please forgive me, you guys. I'm shaking the screen like a madman. I'm really, really demonstrative with my hand. You can't see it, but thank you guys for watching. And that's pretty much everything I got to say, man. Just wanted to get up here and compare those two players loosely with no numbers, just with my memory intact. And yeah, that's what I got. Thank you guys for watching. This is BDF 44. Peace.